I would like to share my idea of struggle with you. I want to research struggle to try to explain how we create, manage, and perceive struggle, and the impact of struggle on our lives from a neuroscientific viewpoint. What is struggle? To try and answer this question, I first asked myself, what does the word struggle mean? Struggle is an action, so I searched dictionaries for descriptions of the verb struggle, and then to try and define struggle for myself, I excluded descriptions that associated struggle with things like violence or fights, and I then highlighted the words that resonated with my perception of struggle. I used these words to form my own definition of struggle, which is to exert effort over a period of time in order to progress while experiencing opposing forces. Based on my definition of struggle, how does struggle impact our lives? Well, it requires energy and effort. Engaging with a struggle demands our time. When we overcome a struggle, we will progress or achieve something, and the experience of a struggle will mean we'll need to overcome difficulties. Why should we struggle if it is difficult and requires time and effort? We should struggle because it can be a creative force for positive change. And this is the idea I want to explore with you, and it can be in 3 different ways. First way, by actively working through a struggle, you can change for the better. Take the caterpillar, for example, who actively struggles through a number of developmental stages to become a butterfly. By overcoming these struggles, the caterpillar becomes capable of flight and also more beautiful. The second way in which struggle can be a creative force for positive change is that the experience of a struggle can motivate you to take positive action. For example, throughout history, people who have experienced or been subjected to struggles were motivated to take positive actions in the forms of political campaigns and also protests. Finally, struggle can be a warning sign that you need to make a positive change. For example, physical struggles can be a warning sign that you need to take a positive change in the form of, let's say, a healthy or medical intervention. Struggle can be a creative force for positive change. I'm well aware that struggle is largely considered to be something negative, and of course it is when you think of things like diseases and illnesses. However, I want to discuss struggle as difficulties that need to be overcome in order to make progress, complete a task, or achieve a goal. And in this context, we need to assess whether a struggle is going to benefit us. Indeed, the first step to overcoming a struggle is recognizing the benefits that you will gain by working through the difficulties and then deciding to act. If the benefits outweigh the struggle, then we should act. But how do we assess struggle and benefits of a potential task? With our brains, of course, and that's my favorite answer to everything. So can anybody here recognize the human brain in this image? Humans are the most intelligent animals in existence, so you'd imagine that the largest brain must be the human brain. Well, actually, it's the brain here in the bottom corner. The largest brain in this image belongs to that of the elephant. However, it is relatively small if we consider the huge size of elephants. The human brain evolved over millions of years to be 5 times bigger than it should be for our mammal our size. Our oversized human brain is packed into our skull so that it has this ridged appearance that we can appreciate in this image. The exponential growth of the human brain during evolution led to the creation of a unique brain region known as the prefrontal cortex. And this prefrontal cortex allows us to simulate experiences in our mind. It also allows us to imagine potential future scenarios. We can think of this prefrontal cortex as our experience simulator, which is very helpful when we're making decisions, and it also stops us from engaging in potential harmful activities. However, our experience simulator is not 100% accurate. After all, simulations never completely capture reality. Indeed, neuroscientists have shown that we imagine situations to have more intensity, duration, and emotional impact than they actually do in reality. And this is known as the impact bias phenomenon, and it means that we imagine things to be more of a struggle than they actually will be. So when we're assessing struggle versus benefits, we need to be aware that our brain simulates struggles to be tougher, longer, and more upsetting. So we shouldn't completely trust our experience simulator when we're making decisions. The most basic science behind struggle is Newton's third law of physics, which states that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. We can take this to mean that every action we take in life will encounter some form of reaction or resistance. Overcoming this resistance is a struggle, but working to do so is essential to make progress. The greater the action required to overcome this struggle, the greater the progress we will make. There is no activity in life that will be completely free of struggle, whether it be mental, emotional, or physical struggles. Struggle can also motivate you to take positive action, and you can be motivated by your own or other people's struggles. But the opposite is also true. A struggle can demotivate you to avoid taking action, and this can have a negative impact on your life and your own personal development. The most difficult struggle a person can face is a negative perception of themselves. A negative perception of your own strengths, abilities, and personality can be shaped by enforced or negative struggles which are typically outside of our own control. For example, poor self-esteem most commonly results from mistreatment during childhood by our primary caregivers, such as our parents. I will speak about how our negative self-perception can be shaped by society's limitations. When we experience these negative struggles, we must try not to let them affect our self-esteem. I know this is difficult, but one way of achieving this is by not blaming ourselves for these struggles. For example, the traditional school system can cause students to have a negative perception of themselves. The prime example of this is the IQ test, which believes that intelligence is a single ability that is inherited, fixed, and cannot be improved with work. So if a student does poorly on an IQ test, then he or she may spend their entire lives believing they have a low level of intelligence. So, the main issue with the IQ test is that it doesn't recognize that there are many forms of intelligence, or that intelligences can be improved with work. Multiple intelligences theory is a theory on 8 real-world intelligences, and each of us has a unique combination of these different intelligences, which include linguistic, logical, visual, bodily, musical, interpersonal, intrapersonal, and naturalistic intelligences. Each of us has a unique combination of these 8 intelligences with one or more strengths in some of these. These multiple intelligences are represented by different parts of our brain, and they can be improved with work. And we need to use a combination of these different intelligences for most of our daily activities. However, the traditional school system only values logical and linguistic intelligences, and therefore only assesses these, so that students' strengths in the other intelligences are not validated in the school system. A famous Albert Einstein quote really sums this up when he says, "Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it is stupid." So this limited view of intelligence can cause students to have a negative perception of their own intelligence levels, and they will then struggle in the academic system and beyond. Struggle, as I said, can be a warning sign that you need to make a positive change. And there's another side to this too. An excessive struggle can be a warning sign that you may need to stop an activity, even if you believe it to be positive or that will benefit you. And a classic example of this is pushing yourself too hard when you're exercising. In cases like these, the struggle outweighs the benefits. How do we manage struggle? The first step to overcoming a struggle is recognizing the benefits you will gain by working through the difficulties and then deciding to act. However, we must remember that when we're assessing struggle versus benefits, that our brain simulates struggles to be tougher, longer, and more upsetting than they actually are in reality. Once you commit to a task that you accept will be a struggle, but believe that will be beneficial to you, the second step is to break this difficult task down into manageable steps. For example, you wouldn't try to climb Mount Everest in one go. You would break this difficult journey down into manageable parts. How do we perceive struggle? Each person has a unique perception of themselves and the world, and this perception is the only reality we will ever know. Our unique perceptions are shaped by two things, the first being biology. We all have the same body parts, but we have a unique biology that is inherited from our parents at birth and which changes and develops during life. The second thing that influences our perceptions are our experiences, and this is the information we learn during our lives in response to the outer and inner environment. A combination of our unique biology and our personal experiences forms our perception of struggle. So we can appreciate that each individual has their own personal struggles outside of how we may perceive their struggles. Interestingly, biology influences our experiences, but biology is also shaped by experiences. And my favorite example of this is brain connections, which both determine our experiences of the world, but also change in response to these experiences. We all have the same brain regions, but our brain connections are wired differently. And this unique brain wiring gives us our unique perceptions, but it also gives us our unique combination of multiple intelligences. These brain connections can then change or be rewired in response to our experiences. The firing of brain cells in response to stimulations or experiences or the environment causes them to rewire their connections. And this rewiring of brain connections allows us to learn new information and also allows us to make new memories. Our perception of struggle will determine our resilience and engagement with struggle throughout our lifetime. If we can trust that struggle is a creative force for positive change, then we will be more likely to engage with struggles and we'll be more resilient to difficult struggles. I perceive struggle to be a creative force for positive change. Any progress I have made in my life has been due to overcoming struggles. And the experience of struggles in my life, even those I did not want or did not choose, has made me a stronger person. My greatest struggle was my PhD research, and I decided to do a PhD because it's essential to be a researcher. By recognizing this, I was able to be enthusiastic, which allowed me to overcome the PhD struggles. After deciding to do a PhD, I broke this task down into more manageable steps, the first being to get PhD funding. And then I broke the PhD into long-term goals within which there were shorter-term tasks. So I was not disheartened, let's say, by this huge workload, and I worked through these shorter-term tasks, and these eventually led me to completing my PhD. And my greatest struggle turned out to be my greatest achievement and the most progress I have made. I learned how to be a researcher, I developed many skills and strengths, and I earned recognition and rewards that allowed me to continue my Parkinson's disease research. There's a key message to take from my graduation image, and that is help from others is key when you are struggling. I would not have completed my PhD without the help of my supervisors, Aideen and Jer. So when we are experiencing struggles, we must not hesitate to look for help from others. Research can also be a struggle because you're constantly working with the unknown. The topics and theories involved are complex, and the procedures, techniques, and technology we use can be difficult. So to overcome this research struggle, you need to be enthusiastic about your research. You have to work hard to make progress. Researchers have to be resilient and persevere in times of struggle, and teamwork is essential. I would not have made any progress as a researcher without the help of many people in UCC and beyond. Finally, you also need to be flexible in your thinking and in your life. A research career can be a struggle, and this is mainly because it is highly competitive due to the limited funding and jobs available. And this competition leads the researchers to have a lack of a work-life balance, despite the fact that the criteria for their progression remains unclear and some people feel it's unfair. So recognizing these research career struggles of myself and my fellow researchers, I was motivated to take positive action to try and overcome some of these struggles. So this Bratislava Declaration is a 4-point plan that aims to overcome some of the research career struggles. And I joined a team of researchers that aims to implement this plan in Ireland with the support of Minister John Halligan. My Brain Talk project was inspired by struggles within the Parkinson's community. The people with Parkinson's, the clinicians that treat the people with Parkinson's, and Parkinson's researchers like myself remained relatively isolated from one another. Recognizing this struggle inspired me and motivated me to take positive action through the Brain Talk project, which aims to bring the Parkinson's community together. We held the Parkinson's community meeting, the Living with Parkinson's exhibition, and the Exploring Parkinson's with Art workshop in the UCC Glucksman Gallery to try and bring the Parkinson's community together, where we could share and also interact and learn from one another. Our Brain Talk project was a huge success, and we received recognition from the Irish Research Council in their annual report. The Parkinson's community had overwhelming interest and outstanding feedback about our Brain Talk events, at which the Move for Parkinson's choir and set dancing were a highlight. Move for Parkinson's is a patient organisation that was founded by Margaret Mullarney and aims to empower, inspire and educate people with Parkinson's through fantastic initiatives such as the 5 Elements, which is a unique self-management framework. I became inspired by Margaret Mullarney and Move for Parkinson's during my Brain Talk project, but recognized their struggle for funding. This struggle motivated me to take positive action in the form of fundraising by doing a Dublin marathon. And after an extensive fundraising campaign and a tough training routine, I completed my first and definitely my last marathon last October. And this marathon was an immense struggle, and my knees will never be the same. But I managed to raise over €2,000 for Move for Parkinson's, so the struggle was definitely worth it. I hope I've convinced you this evening that struggle can be a creative force for positive change. It certainly has been in my life. We must not fear or avoid struggles, even though that is the easier option. We need to embrace struggle as part of our lives and recognize that struggle can be a creative force for positive change within our lives. Dreams cannot become a reality without overcoming struggle. A famous philosopher, William James, is quoted as saying, "Need and struggle are what excite and inspire us." Here he recognizes struggle as a source of excitation and inspiration in our lives, but he then adds, "Our triumph is what brings the void." Here he recognizes that struggle is required for triumph, but he makes an important point, and that is our enjoyment or our excitation is not from the triumph, but from the struggle itself. If we can accept struggle as the experience from which we grow and progress, and agree that struggle is a source of inspiration and excitation in our lives, then we can appreciate that life is a beautiful struggle. Thank you very much.